Thanks to everyone for joining today for another episode of Industry Icons, where Upwave sits down for a virtual fireside with advertising and measurement leaders who have impacted our industry over their successful careers. I'm Chris Kelly, founder and CEO of Upwave, the leader in brand outcomes measurement, and I'm honored to be joined today by Leslie Wood, a pioneer in ad measurement and analytics. I've personally enjoyed seeing Leslie present on conference stages over the years, so I am thrilled to have her on the Upwave virtual stage. So, welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We are glad to have you. And quick reminder for the audience that we may have time for Q&A at the end, so please use the Q&A feature on Zoom to add your questions throughout this session. And with that, let's dive in. So, Leslie, you have spent decades at the forefront of advertising measurement across high-profile orgs like NCS and iSpot. So, looking across that journey, what would you say are some of the biggest evolutions you've seen in how our industry thinks about ad measurement and ad effectiveness?
I think media certainly has become more targeted, but the targets have diminished in quality. Um, it's a much more complex environment.
Yeah.
It's that's all coupled with sharing less data. Um, it's sort of put in the guise of security and person, not sharing IPP, but really, I think it's the people who own the data wanting to hold all the cards and not share.
Yeah.
So the walled gardens, the network not sharing their data. So yes, the shift has been lots more data and less clarity on how to use it and less clarity as an advertiser on
Yeah.
what to do with it.
Yeah, I love that. We hear that from a lot of advertisers. I have more data than ever. I have more AI tools to analyze the data, and it's still not obvious where I should put the next impression. So speaking of those transitions, you mentioned one of them, the shift to the hegemony of walled gardens. But I know you've worked through multiple major transitions in media, from linear dominance to digital fragmentation to the rise of walled gardens to streaming and now cross-platform viewing. So, which of those shifts do you think has changed measurement the most? Was it the rise of walled gardens, or do you think some of those other shifts have been as powerful?
Um, Actually, I think cross-platform was a lot easier before
Yeah.
these things, right? And I think so it depends on which hat you wear. If you're an advertiser, not being able to look across all the different elements. Um, Alice Sylvester and I recently wrote a paper for SIM, and one of the big findings was that there are different kinds of advertisers and they each have different goals and different needs, right? And so what doesn't work for each one of them is quite different. The tech people, they want the answers fast and speed. Um, if you have stores and your CPG and that the kind of being able to look across these things and build, where if you have retail and you actually see the sales happening or online sales happening for you, all the key things that you need are different. So
Yeah.
the transitions have really, it's a complex world, and each group has a different way of thinking about what they need, right? So it's been hard in different ways for different people. At the beginning of all the looking at advertising effectiveness, at the beginning, the signals were pretty clean.
Yeah.
There wasn't it was easy to see what was happening, and it gets more as there's less data and the data has been degraded. It's much harder to get those signals and get them well and get them across all media.
Yeah. Do you think we maybe have too many signals? I know there's so much conversation still happening about a bunch of metrics that I would say are not about impact or outcomes or effectiveness. So much data about impressions, reach, frequency, video completion rate, other metrics that aren't actually about a brand outcome, a behavioral outcome, a business outcome. So do you think that's what's holding us back from talking about counting vanity metrics less and counting impact and effectiveness and outcomes more, or is it this all this complexity that you've mentioned that's holding us back?
So, actually, I think those metrics actually one leads to the other. If you don't
Mhm.
have reach, you don't have if you don't have a broad enough audience and enough reach, and if you have too much frequency, people get annoyed. If you're
Yeah,
if you're targeting too narrowly and they're not well defined, or the data isn't that high quality, like there's a lot of places that can be problems. Um, and I think one of them is just the creative, the having better creative. The vast majority of ads are low to moderate quality. They have low impact, and with the huge dispersion of signals, and as as people spend more and more time online, our attention gets is diminishing. So the ability for an ad to break through is getting harder and harder. So I think it's all a combination of what's making the world so hard. And I don't think it's not having the data. I mean, I don't think it's that we have too much data.
yeah,
I think it's that we don't have the tools that bring all those pieces together, that properly assign weights for how important they are. There's some advertisers where the sale isn't the key. Do you think cars,
yeah,
a dealership, it's getting people into the dealer, et cetera. So it's not always the sale. On the other hand, if you don't pay attention to sales, what's the point, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it's probably what you'll hear mostly in this interview is that I believe it's a fairly complex world, that there
yeah,
isn't a like my whole career, people have wanted there to be a simple answer, to be
yeah,
effective frequency, or, just, or recency, or, there's
yeah.
one
One
way to
silver
do
bullet.
things. And the truth is that doesn't exactly work. Yeah.
Yeah. For easy, then none of us in measurement would have jobs. So
Right.
I guess
Exactly.
we should appreciate the complexity. And I think it's interesting to even see debates of what the answer even is. Sometimes people say, I measure my ads, and you say that's actually just attribution, that's correlation, that's not causality, it's not incremental measurement. So I'd love to have you speak on that. I know you've been in conversations, I'm sure, 100 times trying to tease out what's correlation and what's causality in advertising measurement. So my view is a lot of people in the industry still confuse those two. They see correlation, someone saw an ad, someone bought, and would argue that automatically is the answer, when that's may not be causation, right? They may have been a regular buyer who happened to see the ad, or a platform who knew their regular buyer was smart enough to show them an ad to take credit. Can you speak to that? Where are we as an industry in terms of separating causation from correlation when we look at advertising effectiveness?
Well, I think they're different camps, different methods of people are using. Some are much better than others, clearly. And you definitely want those double robust. You want it to be the analysis to actually take into account all the variables so that you are really looking at causation, which is hard, it's not easy. Judeo Pearl did a great job looking at the causal framework. Um, and you sort of want that to be a key component in how you're measuring. Um, there are methods out there that are clearly not related to cause and effect. They're
Yeah.
clearly related. I mean, it's like counting the counting how many people went into a theater with a coupon when you're giving the coupons out as you walk into the
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
Doesn't really, if you know somebody's going to buy. On the other hand, I think the whole idea that you're going to target people who are not buying, are never buyers, is also not really the right. You want to target people who are likely to buy,
Yeah.
even if they're non-buyers. So you want your message to resonate with people who are likely to buy or have the possibility of buying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that That's the holy grail is avoiding both of those ends of the continuum. The regular customers that are already walking into the proverbial theater, and you think because you showed them an ad on the way in, you get credit for it. That's a waste of media. But someone who doesn't own a cat and never will, showing them cat food is also not a good use of media. So getting people incrementally moving down the brand funnel and incrementally buying is what we all want. And for the reasons you're mentioning, that is hard. And you touched a bit on the balance and the trade-off of sales metrics and other metrics. And I'd say most of our audience today is probably familiar with the seminal work of Benet Fields talking about the long and short of it, of how you balance the media investments for long-term brand growth, planting seeds that will bear fruit in the future versus capturing existing sales, picking the fruit today. So, what do you think about that? How do you talk to marketers? How have you talked to marketers about that, of balancing the need for investing in longer term brand growth while also, of course, justifying the investment of media with shorter term sales?
I don't think you can get long-term without short-term.
Mhm.
If your ad isn't working,
Yeah.
it's never going to pay off. And I did a lot of work, oh, 10 or so years ago on long-term effects and got great awards for, and a patent actually for
Oh,
that work.
congrats.
Yeah. Um, the so long-term effects are built off of short-term. They're almost a multiplier of short-term effects. They're very hard to measure. They're very hard to identify. As you think about it, as time goes on, the signals get weaker and weaker, and particularly it's very hard to track. And I think some of the long-term effects come from the actual use of the product. How did the product produce? Did you like it? Was there a benefit? So there's a piece in there that it's not just the advertising for the long-term effect. Um, on the other hand, I think when you're building a brand, if you only do short term with promotion, we
Yeah.
also showed that that really does hurt the brand. And we showed there's a whole set of work that NCS did, that I did with them, where we looked at brands who had upped their promotion budgets, and we see they drop their advertising, up their promotion, and you can see the sales following the advertising lines. The promotion can can actually wear a brand out. Um, think of, Hamburger Helper.
Yeah.
We were looking at it and it was, once a year, it was 13 boxes for $1 or something like that. And who's going to pay $1.39 if they know once a year they can,
Yeah.
like, you get a nice boost the first time, but and if you're advertising with a message that's just short term, you're not building. I mean, the whole idea is to get an ad to resonate to a human and make a human feel as though this product is going to make me more of who I want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? And that's long term. And but it can also be a reminder ad that's working on the short term. But it has to tap into that resonance if you really want to build equity in a brand.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's a good segue to a conversation we're seeing everywhere now, which is, of course, AI. And we'd be remiss in a webinar in 2026 to not to not talk about AI at some point. But there's a lot of conversation about the impact of AI in different parts of advertising, such as creative, such as measurement, such as activation. So, where are you seeing it so far bring real value, and where do you think it's overestimated, where it's hype but has a chance to be either unhelpful or
Yeah.
even misused? Imagine creative is one of those areas that you've seen a lot of the debate around.
Yeah, happy to talk about creative. I'm also building a company that's doing AI on how to incorporate research more heavily,
Oh,
right?
awesome.
But AI, the idea that, oh, I can have an ad that's perfectly targeted to each person, and the I'll have 10,000 ads, that are all personalized. Um, there's so much work out there that looks at the quality of the ability to target. So if you look at who can, I mean, there are three people that the internet thinks I am. For some reason, I'm interested in warfare. I'm a nurse or a dental. I have some kind of dental practice somewhere in Utah, and I live in the foothills of Colorado, and they need to sell me furnaces and I don't know all kinds of things. None of which is who I am, right? Um, my IP address is 70 miles from my house because that's the way it comes in. Um, so you're going to make an ad that's specific for me, but you've got the wrong me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fundamentally, that doesn't make sense. And the idea that there are 10,000 of them doesn't improve on the foundation of what that ad is, right? So I can see having, um, oh, a number of years ago, Bud Light did this whole campaign for LGBTQ, right? And really, most of their advertising was at events,
Yeah.
right? Well, they really pissed off their regular customers,
Yeah.
even though their regular customers probably never went to a gay pride parade, right? But so you have to, even if you think you're closely targeting, the blowback can, I think you want to have really good creative that hopefully addresses the mass audience. And if you want to have slight variations, certainly make it interesting, certainly
Yeah.
give people variety. But the idea that the ads are going to be so perfect, you're going to know exactly what to do with them is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just a waste.
Yeah, no, I like your line as we because there is all this conversation if we move from 10 ads per campaign to 10,000 or 10 million ads, so we can reach one ad per person. But to your point, if the targeting is not there, if the data is incorrect about who you are, then you're just wasting time and resources making an ad for the wrong person. And I do think, yeah, it makes measurement harder. It makes understanding creative harder if we have to cut our data by 10,000 or 10 million creatives on every campaign. So I think that, yeah, that does seem to be an area where there's a risk of the hype getting ahead of reality. So where about the inverse? Where are you bullish on AI? You mentioned you're working on a company that is going to help AI apply ad research
Yeah.
more effectively. So you may not want to share too much about
No,
that at this point, but we'll love to
we'll
hear more about
be
that.
releasing it in September, so you got a summer to get there. But the key piece is, I think it's very good at synthesizing information,
Yeah,
right? It's very good at collecting. If you say this is the body of work, don't make anything up. It can actually. It's very good with the complex prompts that actually guide AI. Like you really the craft of creating a proper prompt seems to be essential.
yeah,
The
yeah,
places it does really well is generating ideas. So it's great at generate a lot of it. You'd say, yeah, no, that's a ridiculous idea. But it's really good at, editing is so much better, easier than writing. So it can give you something that you can then edit. Um, uh, I think for mundane tasks, for a while I was really worried that entry level people wouldn't get the training. First
yeah,
of all, we've made them a lot virtual. It's really hard
yeah,
if you're not rubbing shoulders and listening to people
yeah,
around you all day. And then we're now going to give all the grunt work to AI. But I remember when I started in this business, luckily I didn't have to do it, but I had a team of people who checked competitive spending reports. And there were 15 college entry people who
wow,
looked at the report and checked were our numbers right, from the agencies, with the
yeah,
numbers right. Like, I don't know that that helped them be better researchers. I think they'll, you don't have to know how the car works to be able to drive. I think this the young people who are joining right now may have some difficulty making that transition, but we get used to the tools and how to use them, and the next generations are going to do far better with these tools than we can even imagine,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, they'll have use cases we can't even imagine today.
That's exactly.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah. No, I like your point about it. When applied well, AI can give superpowers to the human, make us more creative, more analytical. So I liked your examples about giving a human ideas. So it can give me a list of ideas to start from so I can edit. Give me a prototype. AI is
Yeah.
phenomenal. And on the product side, on getting a quick and dirty prototype up is incredibly fast. So I'd like your point about editing. Let the smart human edit um, something generated by AI. That's a good rule of thumb to apply. So, well, we will wait across the summer for your news of the announcement, but I know it'll
Yeah.
keep us all on our toes waiting for that. But best of luck getting that off the ground.
Yeah. Thanks.
Another area where we see some conversation about AI is around optimizing campaigns, in-flight optimization. And I know you've spoken about this before about the importance not just of measuring the campaign, but actually optimizing it during the campaign, not just as a retroactive. So where do you think we are as an industry in-flight optimization? Are we making progress over the years, or are we not making enough progress? Do you think AI will help campaigns be optimized in flight more effectively? What's your optimization point of view?
So AI is a lot of things. It's machine learning and large language models. There
Yeah,
are a lot of varieties of, and within those, there's many that are underneath those, right? Um, so I think machine learning is going to do a really good job. It does do a really good job of helping us do optimization and turn data into signals that you can optimize on. Um, But the speed is really related to the pipes and how quickly does the data flow and how accurate is that data. I know at iSpot we were delivering impressions the next day for television, and Nielsen was 3 weeks, right? That
yeah,
difference, you can't have speed, right?
yeah,
Digital
yeah,
tends to be overnight, but then now you don't get a lot of signals you don't even get, right? So what do you do when there is no signal? Should you be advertising where there isn't, you don't have access to the signals? Um, and how do you put enough weight into any one place so that there's enough data to have a signal,
yeah,
right? Like you can buy all the different networks and you're going to get better deals if you buy like two or three networks or broadcast stations. But you'll probably get more reach if you spread it out.
yeah,
Doesn't really matter when the impressions all come together, but that's not true in digital. It's not true in a lot of places. So how do you have enough weight to be able to measure? How do you put the pieces together? Yeah, it gets I think because there's so many different signals called engagement, called
yeah,
responsiveness, right? All those different attention. Ha I don't think advertisers know exactly how to put them together. And I think that's our job. I mean, I
yeah,
really do think go for it, Chris.
yeah,
There's a lot of white space there about how do you put these things together to because there's not a lot of good and they're often pointing in different directions, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, so it's a good leads to a maybe a wonkier question, but something that I know I think is perpetually fascinating. Of how do you think markets should balance this need for statistical rigor from a measurement standpoint versus the need for actionable and quick decision making from an optimization standpoint? Because I know, for example, we've had conversations with advertisers where they say oversimplify. They have two creatives running a campaign and they want to know which one to overweight, but they don't want to do anything until they hit 95% confidence. But of course, 50-50 is a choice, just like 60-40 or 70-30 is a choice. So by doing nothing, you're actually making
Doing stuff.
decisions. So it's this balance, it's this tension of this kind of statistical rigor that measurement requires to get the right measurement output for versus faster decision making from the measurement colleagues, the colleagues of the measurement people who are actually optimizing the media. So how have you thought about that tension, and I'm sure you've been in some conversations.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of layers here. One layer is if you have often brands and advertisers are not interested in the results from a year ago.
Yeah,
They don't want to hear when you have really good results and plenty of data, they're not that interested, but they should be. They should be monitoring the whole picture so that they understand the quality of the short-term picture.
yeah,
Does the quick picture portend the big picture, right? Like which measures actually show you what direction you're going in, right? So
yeah,
there's certainly more like yes, collect the long-term robust measures. That's one thread. Another thread is I hated statistical significance
yeah,
because I mean it was really it's a way for a media to say, I'm not going to give you results that aren't 95 stat sig. Well, that just means I'm not going to give you anything that doesn't look like we did a good job. I'm not going to give you negative results or average results or poor results. If they have to be high stat sig, they're going to be quality results. So you need to move off of the idea of stat sig into
yeah,
something about confidence. You need to move something about the power, which looks at do I have enough sample? Like I may not see any effective advertising, but I have enough sample and I should be able, if it was there, I would see it is different than, oh, I had plenty of sample. I just didn't see anything, right? Or I didn't have enough sample. So that's another vein. And the third vein is the layer sort of thing to think about is the whole idea of if you think in this world of I want fast answers, right?
yeah,
LLMs, they can give you an answer like that. But I want them with the quality that comes with a slow answer, right? I want to be able to say, is this slow answer can I get a fast answer that's as good as my slow answer? And how do I ensure that I can trust the fast answer? So I also see this question coming into what I'm doing, where how do I create it so that whatever you get is accurate when you think it's going to be accurate. When it's making it up, it says, I'm making this up. Here's some ideas, or I'm generating stuff so that I can begin to have confidence. Because if you don't have confidence in the fast answer, who cares that you got a fast answer?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's to the extreme, that's another layer of, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. We'll have to send a blog post about our take on StatSig, which we are fully aligned with you. And I promised our audience this was not choreographed. I did not know that was going to be your answer. That read a blog post to share. But yeah,
Oh, good.
we're in violent agreement with you on that. The amount of time someone saying I will do nothing and share nothing until we hit 95% gets in the way of actionable decisions is crazy, and it seems like people know enough about stats to be dangerous. And there we go. Our marketing team posted that 2021 blog post for everyone. Why StatSig does not answer the brand campaign optimization question. So perfect answer, and we could not agree more. So I'll ask one more question. I know we're almost at time, and thanks for. I could ask 1,000 more, especially with all the layers you mentioned on your last question, but we'll keep it to one more for our audience, and that's the token future question. So if we were having this similar conversation, say 3 years from now, 4 years from now, as we approach 2030, what do you think would be fundamentally different about how advertisers are measuring and optimizing media? What do you think will, I know we don't know what we don't know, but what are some things you predict will be pretty different about a conversation like this in 3 or 4 years?
How about I answer what I hope will be different?
Good. That's good.
Um, I'm distressed by the lack of sharing of information.
Hmm.
And I think advertisers don't realize the power of how much power they have in getting information to be shared.
Yeah.
Um, the, um, we don't know enough about streaming because nobody wants to share their streaming data. They won't share it with the measurement companies. We don't know enough about walled gardens. They pretend they don't share data, but you know what? They do share data. They hide behind this privacy problems.
Yeah.
Um, it's very easy to, I mean, they want to control the answer. So they want to bring the way they want data to be done is through their models. But
Yeah.
truly, it needs to be out there. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be shared. So I think in 3 years, 3 to 5 years, I'd love to see that transformation's happened, where instead of everybody trying to glom as much information and own it and hold all the cards, I think that's at a detriment. I mean, I think it's a natural evolution today. Everybody knows that data's worth is liquid gold,
Yeah.
right? But actually by everybody holding on to their data, they end up really diminishing the entire sphere of advertising and
Yeah.
make it less actionable. It doesn't serve consumers because they see ads that are stupid,
Yeah.
that don't relate to them. It doesn't serve advertisers because they spend money delivering ads to the wrong people. There's just many layers. We could do such a good job if we at least found a way to share a lot more information.
Yeah. No, I love your sub point about the dishonest hijacking of the privacy narrative to be used to share less data and erect higher walls on walled gardens. I think the teams there know that they should never let a good crisis go to waste. And seems every time there's a privacy story that is serious and should be solved and should be addressed, there's an unrelated change in data sharing that has nothing to do with the privacy
Right.
change, but is used. It gives them air cover to share less. So I agree on your point there, and your point of it's liquid gold. So let's spread the wealth around the industry so marketers can win more in the long
It's
term.
actually to make the advertising would be a whole lot more valuable. You'd be
Yeah,
willing to pay more for it.
right. Yeah,
You'd be
the income
willing,
would go
like
up. Yeah,
if it actually delivered the results, you wouldn't have as much clutter that people wouldn't be not listening. I mean, it's not rolling back to an older era, really. It's saying let's harness what this era has available to it and
yeah,
make it the best possible product it can be, so that people want to spend more money on advertising, and they can see the effect of it in their brand development.
yeah. That's perfect closing sentence. Like couldn't imagine better, more uplifting, aspirational call to action for the industry. So
There you go.
thank you, Leslie. Really appreciate you joining us and engaging and entertaining our audience with your thoughts. And we appreciate everyone in the audience who joined today to hear from Leslie. We'll, of course, put this conversation on YouTube so we can share it with others in the industry who weren't able to join. But we hope everyone has a great day. And we look forward, Leslie, to hearing about your upcoming startup. So best of luck with that.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Take
thank
care.
you. Take care.